Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We have a great session lined up for you today. Before we get started, there are just a few general housekeeping points to cover. First and foremost, please use the online question tool to post any questions that you have, and we will share them with our speakers. Second, if you experience any technical difficulties today, please use the same question tool, and a member of our admin team will be on hand to support you. And finally, just to note, this session is being recorded, and we'll be sharing a copy of the recording with you via email in the coming days. So, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our speakers to get us started. Over to you, Gregoire.
Thank you very much, Fluffy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I see a number of attendees scoring progressively, and so we'll give ourselves a couple of minutes to get started. But just already before starting, thank you very much to our panelists, Elena, John, Alan. We'll introduce you properly in a couple of minutes, but thank you so much for being with us this morning, connecting from many different areas. Elena is joining from Sweden, John is in the UK, and Alan is regularly in Switzerland, but he's now in Singapore. And for attending a great event, Alan, right? You were participating to the Alita Awards, right? Legal Tech in Asia and Pacific. How is this going?
Absolutely, it's going great, and it's super interesting to see what's going on in Asia from a legal technology standpoint. And maybe you know, some of the questions you will be raising, Gregor, I'd be happy to share some hot from the press insight.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, I see a couple more people joining, and I think we will get started in a minute. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see on the right side of your screen, for all attendees, you have a question section where you can ask questions. So please do not hesitate to ask questions. We'll do our best to answer them along the way. We'll share really a couple of insights on this survey that you may have seen. We'll have a reminder at the end of the session, but everyone, all participants, registrants will receive a copy of the survey, so no worries on that side. And again, please jump in, please ask questions. We want this to be as dynamic as possible. I think we'll just get started, and yeah, people are still joining. We'll kick it off slowly. So first of all, I'd like to introduce formally this time our panelists, Elena, John, Alan, joining us this morning. Thank you again very much for being with us. Elena Hallgarn is the co-founder of Virtual Intelligence VQ. She's also the ELTA ambassador for Sweden, former vice president of ELTA. She's probably one of the most influential voices in the Nordics, if not most influential voice. Very impressive, Elena, and please give us a few explanations and tell us a bit more about what you're doing with VQ.
With VQ, we are, for example, we try to digitalize the legal world in Sweden and Scandinavia. We have an online tool that automates the way legal matters are being managed, how documents are being produced. We're doing it in a quite new, innovative way, and we have most of the legal world as customers today in Sweden.
Wonderful. We also have John Bartman. John is a legal tech expert. He has an outstanding expertise on the legal tech market. He's been involved with legal and professionals now for the past 10 years. He's also a fellow board member of ELTA. John, thank you again for joining. Give us some explanations around what you're doing exactly.
Yeah, no, it's all a little bit secretive at the moment, I'm afraid, but it launches on October the 1st. As you said, I've spent the last 10 years in the legal framework and the last 4 years really applying myself to legal technology and making sure that in-house teams and law firms of any size have the ability to take on legal tech that actually is going to help them. So it's a passion that's now turned into a business. I'm very excited to be here today.
Thank you so much, John. And I can't wait to hear about your new adventures. Still stealth mode, but yeah, very exciting ahead. And Alan also, he's a rock star GC. He's now move to the Over side. He's moving to consultancy. He's the general manager in Europe for Denton's Nextlaw in-house solutions. He's also an ELTA ambassador for Switzerland. Alan, thank you for joining, especially given time difference and everything. So thank you for joining from abroad. Yes, please give us say a few words on what you're doing at Denton's.
Thank you very much. I like it's moving from being a plumber to being a rock star. So it's good. It's improving. And speaking about improvement, that's actually what we're trying to do for large law departments of global organization. So as you were saying, Greg, I'm today in Singapore, and I was speaking to the Association of Corporate Counsel, and they were explaining to me, look, we are lost in translation as far as technology is concerned, because they are lawyers, they are firefighting, they are subject to the more with less challenge. And then so one thing we try to do is to help them, understanding first where they are, then what type of technology, will be helping them. So technology roadmap, technology selection, and implementation. So very high level, this is what we do, and connecting the dot, law, technology, and business.
Perfect, wonderful. Thank you, Alan, for sharing. And so I'll be your humble moderator this morning. Very happy to have this very friendly discussions with fellow ELTA members, board members, former board members, but yes, legal tech friends. We've been doing many things all together for a while now. I'm leading business enablement and product management at Wolters Kluwer, the legal software branch. We're part of legal and regulatory. I'll say a few words about what we're doing at Wolters Kluwer. And I'm also ELTA's president now since last year. A few words precisely on Wolters Kluwer, leading a company in information and solutions across the globe. We have 5 main divisions. We're working in many different areas: in health, in tax and accounting, in finance. We even have a brand new branch now with corporate performance and ESG. Very exciting division. But I'm working for legal and regulatory, where we have also very exciting solutions for legal professionals. That's the legal software business unit that is operating in Europe and in the US, where we have solutions for in-house professionals and for law firms. 92% of what we're doing is mostly global, and we have lots now of solutions. We've moved free from a content and publishing business to really two solutions. We're co-hosting this webinar this morning with ELTA. That's my overcap as well, and for our panelists, we're all part of the European Legal Technology Association. It's a fantastic network of professionals that are influential voices in their own countries. We have a bit more than 40 ambassadors now from many different regions, including from countries abroad. We have a couple of ambassadors, including in India. We've onboarded recently someone in Iceland. So lots of voices, lots of exciting markets sharing this passion for legal technology. The organization has a bit more than 300 corporate members and represents a bit more than 5,000 professionals. So ELTA was participating alongside of Wolters Kluwer, contributing and helping in conducting this survey. Very exciting survey by Wolters Kluwer on really the Legisway benchmark, so how legal departments are evolving. The survey was conducted between May and August this year with over 520 in-house legal professionals across Europe. The aim was really to explore the impact of digitalization within corporate legal departments. We've seen this evolve during the past few years. We've seen a lot of changes. Obviously, COVID had a significant impact on this and how we were progressively transitioning something else. AI has also its impact on how we are perceiving legal technology, how do we embrace it, how do we approach it. What we will look at, and you'll receive, as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, you'll receive a copy of the survey with great insights, but we'll mostly discuss a couple of things with our panelists this morning. Really budget allocation, development of digital strategies, and challenges when introducing technology. This is really what we'll be focusing on. Just before starting, a quote I like it very much was used a couple of years ago, and that's coming from Bob Ambrogi, journalist, content editor of law sites. He's saying it with regards to tech adoption, there's no going back. it's even more true today. And he's also saying, and I like that very much, that the toothpaste is out of the tube in there, and no one should bother to try to squeeze it back in. That's very true. There is no way back, and I believe that's also the overall experience that we've seen with legal professionals now for the past couple of years. There's only moving forward, but there are many different ways of moving forward when it comes to legal technology, and that's mostly what we'll be discussing today. So first thing is a bit about the demographics of this survey. 520 in-house legal professionals in many different countries. Most countries represented: Belgium, France, Germany, a large part, 18% also in the United Kingdom, so well represented. Then in Spain, Switzerland, Netherlands as well. So I'd say a really broad range of countries being represented here. How many personnel are there within your legal team? That's also very interesting in terms of demographics. It says a lot about the kind of company that this is. Sometimes really the indicator is not so much the size of the company, but much more how many people you have in your legal team. And so the vast majority, so half, a bit more than half of them actually, has a rather small team, so 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 14%, and we even have 100 plus legal teams. That's 9% of those. So a couple of very large organizations here. Now, starting to deep dive in the numbers that we have for the survey. So what is the annual legal spend of your organization? That's also a very interesting indicator. 31% less than 50K, 50 to 100K, that would be 26%. We have 14% of over 500,000 and up to 1 million. That's also very interesting. How do you see, now I'll turn to Alan, because you've been general counsel in very large organizations, international corporations, Fortune 500. How do you see these numbers? I mean, do we have actually here a good representation of the standard legal departments, how they operate, and in terms of spending? What's your view on this?
I think it's a very nice mix, and I like to see the different countries on the slide before. And then the question I think I will have is, so I always made a distinction between like global organizations. They have a complex structure very often, which is they have a budget at global level, they have a budget at regional level, and then they have a budget at a local level. So my question will be on those numbers, for the respondents. Is it local country budget, which then will make sense, but then just to give perspective for big organization and like budget at global or local or regional level, we can be looking at 50 million or 150 million, and I know the numbers may sound like totally crazy for some countries, but it's just to give a bit of perspective, and I think the bigger your budget is, then the more leeway you have to optimize things. So that would be my comment on this slide, Greg.
Thank you very much, Alan. And on the right side of the screen, we have also some numbers on what's the legal department's annual budget for purchasing legal technology tools and services. That's also very interesting, because we're not only talking about tools, we're also talking about services. So pretty much anything that has to do with legal technology. 1/4 of them less than 10K, so that's pretty much below any kind of procurement threshold. So that's really anything that they can spend directly. 10 to 20,000, 17%. We have very low 21 to 50, a bit more over 50. That's really residual. Obviously, what caught my attention here is 38%, no specific budget. So it means that, yeah, there's a lot of begging involved whenever they'd like to do something on the legal technology side. John, you've been involved in consultancy for a while now. I mean, you've been discussing PGC. So how's the begging going for legal departments?
You kind of got it in one. It's such a difficult one, and it's difficult for in-house teams to go and actually even approach people about legal tech spend. I mean, the interesting part, I think, really is the link between what is seen as a recruitment budget and what is seen as a tech budget. So I desperately need someone to help me do X, and recruitment budgets seem to have sort of fly through quite easily. And what I would urge, and what I spend my life doing, is urging that actually technology can be that extra person. So understanding that there is a intrinsic link between recruitment budgets and technology budgets means that you might be able to start to realize that the extra person you need is a piece of legal tech rather than a person coming in that can be tremendously expensive, may not work out, and may not do the job. So, can tech replace people? I'm going to say yes, I think it can. So even though you don't have any specific budget, you may have budget that is in there, and it's not replacing the people who are in the organization. This is about bringing in someone to come in for a few weeks to do a project, which is enormously expensive and doesn't necessarily always work out. So there are ways around that.
Yes, and there's also overall really a global trend in sourcing a lot more of the work, I believe, in legal departments. Everyone's a lot more cautious when it comes to spending. That's also what we had in our Future Ready Lawyer survey. So your yearly survey, the next one for 2023 is coming out in November. But that's also something that has been really a constant trend, more in sourcing. It's also interesting in how is the relationship with external providers and how the legal department moved up on the food chain of legal services, right? That's interesting part. How do you feel about that, Elena? How are you seeing this in your market?
Yeah, I think it's quite, I agree with John. You have to look at both recruitment and tech and focus much more on management. And just to make a brief overview, some perspective over some years, anyway, from a Scandinavian view. I mean, several years ago, an in-house counsel used to be one person and responsible for buying legal support from law firms and didn't really have any budget at all, but just buying all the legal help. Then the legal costs accelerated and they started building legal departments, legal in-house departments, and then they recruited people to be able to replace some of the work from being done from law firms. So that's where we are today. But the next step then is to start really to see how can you change the legal work being managed within the organization, and then you need tech to support it, naturally. And then you have to have a budget handling all of this, where you can buy, where you can spend time to analyze what needs you have, and then buy tech support to implement something. So I think overall we can see that the need for much more management within the in-house counsel. So that's going to be crucial to really transform the in-house legal department. And then it's not sufficient to have these small budgets for some tech purchase.
Yes, absolutely. I just seen a comment that came in the question section. Very interesting. I love that. Wes is saying it would be interesting to compare annual budget for purchasing legal tech with the budgets for tools in areas such as finance, ERP, and sales and marketing with CRMs. I'm sure you would see that legal tech budget is dwarfed by the budgets for these other tools, when legal tech is just as important. Thank you very much. I love that. That's well, we will be commenting on something like this, but yes, absolutely. It's and just as we were talking about a bit the begging part of actually securing a budget for legal department, there's a lot to do on that side, and it is still very obvious in the mind of everyone that for HR you need a proper HR tool. That for finance you need a proper ERP. It's not yet completely natural and familiar for organizations to say, yes, we have a legal team, they need a proper legal tool. And that's not yet there. Do you all agree with that statement? I believe that we still have some way to go.
So, Greg, if I may step in, I think it's a very important point. Which when you look at when you do a maturity assessment of a law department, I think one of the key performance indicators from my perspective is the level of spend in technology. So when you have a law department with a low level of maturity, the spend will be very small. A law department that actually is at a higher level of maturity, then you will have, when you look at the external spend, it should not only be law firms. You should have legal technology and also ALSPs, because
Yes.
it's what I call the volume mix. And the best-in-class law departments, at least what I'm seeing on the market, is the one which has this kind of blend, to build on the point of Elena and John, that when you look at a piece of activity, yes, you have human beings, but the machine can do also a lot. So that's something very interesting. And the second comment is, then the question is, how do you secure budget to buy technology? And here, that's what you can do. You can build a business case and look, today I need to manage 20,000 claims of consumer because I'm selling washing machine, and I'm giving you a real life example. And today I've got a team of 40 people, and it's cost me like 2.5 million euro. If I leverage technology, I can reduce this amount from 2.5 million to 1.5 million. And this is how then you can build this business case, go to your CFO and to your business partners and say, look, we want to transform our legal function together with you, dear business stakeholder. And this is how, if we make an investment in technology, we'll get it, money back 3 times the amount of investment.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to jump in there, because I think there's also, if you look at the amount of people that responded to the survey that are in legal departments that are under 5 people, that there is a perception that legal tech can be so expensive and it's only for the really big companies. And I think what's happened over the last few years, or certainly in the last 18 months, is that there are solutions out there for small legal teams that really help. And I think that if you start to look at solutions that are going to help smaller legal teams, as well as the enormous legal teams that have got unlimited budgets, essentially, from everything else, you'll still be able to find a way forward. And that's the important bit. Can I make my life easier and more efficient by using technology? And that's exactly where we want to be.
Yes. Yeah, the criteria of having affordable solutions on the market now is very important. I believe that this is also important in terms of comparison. It is indeed, if we have comparison points like finance tools and ERPs, yes, ERPs can become pretty expensive. But we had also this evolution of the market where everything became a lot more affordable, and we had pretty much the same thing for legal technology. That's also true with AI powered tools being available now, and solutions with entry points that are actually pretty much affordable for any kind of organization with less than 5 legal counsels in the team. So that's also important to have in mind. So what are you seeing as the trends in legal spend management? I think, Alan, you already shared a couple of things that you've noticed already. This insourcing trend that we're seeing now is we're still building on. Do you see anything else in terms of trends?
Were you asking me? I didn't see. Okay. The trends about this in legal spend now, we need to expand the tech budget and the legal spend in the management in general to be able to transform the legal department, really. So we have to look at it in a completely new, different way and find ways to change the way we work. And if you want to standardize, you want to structure the process, and you want to spend more on legal tech, otherwise you won't be able to change the legal department, and you will just have a workload that you cannot manage at all, since you cannot keep on recruiting more people. So it has to be a change in the budget.
Indeed. And so, how do you predict tech budgets how they will change in the next 3 years? John, how do you see this evolving now?
Yeah, look, I think that there's going to be an enormous change coming, especially as we're in, as the world, we're looking at costs. We're looking at how we can make everything a little bit better, how we can save money, and how we can actually operate at greater profits, not necessarily by trading. So, we're going to trade our way out of this, but actually what can we do within the four walls that we have as a company to make ourselves leaner and better? So technology is exactly that. And I think that there's going to be, as technology gets better and better, that's the other thing that needs to be said at this stage. So technology that was relevant and great even 5 years ago has been surpassed by technology that's got better. Everyone's talking about AI and generative AI. I spend my life talking about those two, and they're getting better and better and better. So it's legal spend, tech spend is going to go up because actually solutions are going to come out that are going to get better and better and better. So by its very nature, if that's going to make a company leaner and able to make more profit, it's going to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, there's really a commoditization of most of these tools. It's getting a lot more, not only affordable, but yes, it will actually alleviate a lot more. We'll see a lot more the ROI. That's something we will discuss. How do we get to the ROI point in the market? How do you feel about this, Elena? Evolution in budgets?
Yeah, we have to see I agree with John. You need a much better budget to be able to change this and really transform the legal department. So that is crucial, and you need assistance. You need to manage and see what parts could be changed by the use of technology, and hopefully we get more and more products that are more plug and play too. That's easier to implement, but they still need support by tech people and tech experts to do the right kind of implementations, and that's why they need a budget to do this. It won't continue as they have done before. Just try to look at a tool and try to implement it, and hopefully it will work. And it doesn't really work well. They need a proper budget process and proper plan to really change the legal work. And it costs some money, time and money is needed for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Also, I'm seeing a couple of questions coming in, and thank you all for participating. That's great to have comments alongside. I'm seeing something. So we'll come back to your question, Christian, on something that is very important. Christian was raising the matter of confidentiality of text, or beyond the acquisition point is how much can we trust these solutions in the market, which is so very important. And Chris was also mentioning, unfortunately, get the feeling that the butcher is signaling the need to sell more meat. Try to optimize your current use of tools. What I see is that the current tools are used too narrowly. Mindset is more important than naming budget every time. And I think that's also very important in how we transition. That's really the change management as well. Or how do we actually get our heads around what exactly do we need? But that's maybe something that we can raise again right here in, yes, precisely the kind of investment that we want to see and want to make an organization. That's a very interesting slide. We don't how the question to respondents was, so how do you plan improving your organization and its processes over the next 3 years? So the first part of the question is, so what have you already improved in your organization? So a large part is managing priorities and deadlines, 29%, managing documents, contracts, or drafting, redlining different versions at 27%, collaborating with other departments, 33%, and then we have a couple more, demonstrating value, 28%, etc. The second part of the question was, so what are you planning to improve in the next 3 years? And here it starts getting very interesting. 48% is collecting, organizing, and retrieving legal information. And we'll get back to that point, because that's organizing really data. That's really legal department gold. And how do we structure this information? 42% managing documents and contracts, drafting, redlining. So this is still a very hot topic. We knew that already. The CLM market has never been as hot. Pretty much everywhere. It's now valued at billions and still growing. So very impressive. Collaborating with other departments, so that's still very much a bottleneck in organization. How do we share information? How do we collect? Structuring processes, managing workloads, high volumes of requests. Improvements needed but not planned yet. Also very interesting, 27% structuring processes, managing workload, high volumes of requests, and very few on priorities and deadlines, on collecting, organizing, retrieving legal information. And eventually, that's also interesting, no plans to improve at all. So complete visibility over legal activities, that's what really comes up at 20%. So for audits and reporting. Managing priorities and deadlines, 16%, demonstrating value, 18%. So very interesting here. I really have a couple of questions for you all. What really strikes you when you see these numbers? I don't know which one of you would like to get started.
Go on, I'll jump in. The one that I love more than anything, love is probably the wrong word. The one that I really like is always the idea that legal departments are a cost center and not a value creator. So demonstrating the value of legal departments to business stakeholders is often one of the worst processes that a legal team can go through, which is, you know, all I see you do is spend money, and you're shipping stuff out to other law firms. We're not doing it in-house. When you're not answering the emails that we send with our hundreds of NDAs, and they see it so much not as a value creator, but as a cost center. And this is part of what I do on a daily basis. So feel free to get in touch. How do you prove that legal is delivering value back to the organization? Actually, there are metrics to do that. There are ways to do that. There are ways of understanding what the legal function is doing within a company that makes them the most important part of the company. But it has to be managed and maintained, and then you have to deliver what that value is back to the stakeholders so they understand, right, I get what you're talking about. And then you can start moving forward as a team. So it's understanding that the legal department is the most important department, and then getting other stakeholders to kind of buy into that, which is a process. Don't get me wrong, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's very manageable and maintainable, and I've done it multiple times. So it's something that can be done. So that's the one that struck me the most.
Mm-hmm. May I comment that? I think
Sure.
The most important part also is about structuring processes, because if you don't have any structure at all internally, you haven't standardized, you haven't any control over your processes, it's quite difficult to apply and implement technology too. So you have to start with the basics. It was like an in-house counsel I was meeting with the last month that had a project to digitalize the whole department, and then wanted some contract management software to be able to handle the creation, the management of the contracts, and the signing and the follow-up and everything. But they didn't have any structure beneath. And I mean, to me, it's buying some kind of software that is just wishful thinking that something good will happen out of it. You have to start with the basics. You have to structure your department. You have to structure your processes. And once you have done that, you can continue then with the tech implementation. So that is the crucial start. They should start with this part, I believe.
I completely agree with you on this. I mean, the only reasonable way to approach this is probably to start with your own processes, and then to make sure that you can collect, organize, and retrieve legal information. Then to manage priorities and deadline, and then you can look at whatever is left on that list. But really, what is striking here is that somehow we're putting some priorities on operational things before even figuring out how do we want to have this organized in terms of processes in the organization. How do you see this, Alan?
So, I mean, it's two comments. So one is, and I'm fully with John and Elena and you, Grégoire. It's about, what I call positioning the legal function the right way. And one KPI is your chief legal officer. Who is she or he reporting to? The best-in-class legal function, it should be the CEO. Because it's all in any organization. it's always start from the top, tone at the top. It's like compliance. So, but unfortunately, my observation is that in Europe, and I see a big gap between the US and Europe. In Europe, many organizations and big organizations, the CLO is reporting into the CFO. And that goes back to your point, John, where the perception is that the legal function is a cost. So that starts, so comment number one is try to push to have your CLO on the board. So how do you do that? And how do you, what is your right to have a seat on the board of management? And that's my second point. This is about positioning the legal tool as a strategic tool for the business. And I can give you a very concrete example. I was working in the food industry, and then we were launching a product which was potentially infringing the patent of a third party, and I will not give names. And so we launched a product because we did a great job with the R&D team to do design around. But 3 months after the launch of the product, what happened is the competitor, whose patent was going into the public domain, start changing the machine in which our product was fitting into, just for the sake of excluding competition. So what we did, we initiated an action before a competition authority, and we obtained a decision whereby these competitors could not make those technical change for the sole purpose of excluding competition. So what we did, thanks to a legal tool, is to save the business. And if you can build those cases and show to the business, look, you should leverage the law as a strategic business tool, then they will say, wow, that's amazing what the legal function can do. And they will welcome you to the board of management. And then you can, start from there. And then you will obtain the budget, and then you can, what you were saying, Elena, about processes and transformation. So it's really you have an organizational component to it, and you as lawyer, you have a responsibility to position yourself and show that the law can be a strategic business tool.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Alan, because yes, this is a very compelling example indeed of how it's being involved in the organization. So, and maybe for more and for smaller legal teams, so between 1 and 10 employees, are there improvements that should be made more urgently than others? That's also very important questions. We've seen that most of the respondents, and that's also the reality of legal departments in Europe, we tend to see actually a lot of small organizations actually having very bigger teams. More than 15, 20 people is kind of the exception. That's really large organizations. For someone who's really caught up, and we've seen this many times, someone who's caught up in this firefighting mode, it may be yourself alone in the organization, yourself plus a paralegal and another legal counsel, so very small team, and you have topics, requests, things coming over from pretty much every single side. So you're always under fire for something that's more urgent than the other. So most of the thing that you're trying to figure out is how do you actually treat urgencies based on how critical they are for the organizations. How do you actually get out of this mode, and what exactly should you actually prioritize more urgently in this list? Because it's obviously we're here commenting saying actually you should figure out first your processes and then how you can actually retrieve and organize your data. But for someone who's actually under fire every single day, they just don't have time to organize processes and actually take one day off of the team and say, okay, so how are we going to work and how are we going to prioritize everything? So what's your take on what they should be doing and what they should start doing first?
Look, timing is always a difficult one, and I think I said to you before, and it's a bit like having children, that there's never the right time to have children. It just happens, and the best time to start with anything is to start today and tomorrow. That's it. We start today, and finding what the right solution will be means that you've just got to be very proactive, hugely proactive in what you do. So timing is everything. There's never the right time So start your journey and start going along now.
Very good advice, John. Indeed, thank you for that. I was thinking also on the, so if I'm caught up with so many requests coming from everywhere, the first thing I may want to do is, so how do I put some kind of, how do I create a proper funnel so I know what's coming my way? The interaction with the rest of the business. So how do I actually start processing everything and start also, and that's maybe something that is now very accessible to legal departments, is how do I create also some kind of an entry point, a one-stop shop where I can start actually, maybe that's where the next step is automating a couple of things. Most annoying thing I'm hearing from legal departments is we just can't bear any more business coming to us saying, hey, you have the most recent version of the NDA template that we need to use for the organization, and reviewing NDAs that actually are based on the template from 2 or 3 years ago. That's very low value work, and still they need to chase these kinds of things. So that's really starting to actually operate with the business on, and also because it's probably the best starting point to get to demonstrate value in the organization. Alan, you wanted to comment on this?
Yeah, so maybe a low-hanging fruit, which is to learn to say no. And it's like what you said, John, like with children, you need to educate them. And I hear very often the CLO, speaking to us and say, look, I try to tell my team, to your point, Grégoire, stop doing those low-hanging fruit, NDA. We told the business for all the times, it's not your job. We don't have the bandwidth to do that. Mm-hmm. But we are lawyers. We want to help, which is great. That's our job. It's in our DNA. And so then there is a psychological component, and maybe that's a low-hanging fruit, which is to really empower your team if you're leading, a small legal function, to say, I spoke to the CEO of the company, I spoke to the CFO, I spoke to the board of management, or if you're dealing, with the procurement function, I spoke to the head of procurement. And they agree, they understand where we are, they understand that the budget we have, that the resources we have, and with this amount of resources, this is so much we can do. And therefore, they need to take on board part of the responsibility. So it's on the one hand, talking to the business stakeholders to make sure that you are aligned, and on the other hand is to empower your team, psychologically speaking, to say no to the business about things that you have discussed and say, this, we can't do it because we have to spend our time on high add value activity.
Yeah, I just agree with what you're saying, because I think saying no is the best productivity tool you have, to say no to things, because you have to be able to spend your time on the right things and try to invest your time for the long-term work you can be handled. So learn to say no to stuff.
Thank you, Elena. And now, and I like this one very much, on how does this work with digital strategy? So when did your legal department started establishing its digital strategy? So a couple of them, 20% approximately, more than 3 years ago, 1 to 3 years ago. The very interesting part is 27%, we do not have a clear digital strategy, or even 17%, we are in the process of determining our digital strategy. But if we look at this from a due date and milestones, it's very interesting to see how many just don't have proper milestones. That's 22%, and I can't help thinking, if you have a digital strategy and yet you just don't have milestones and due dates, it's pretty much the same as not having a digital strategy at all. So it's very hard to build something. I mean, there's the intention and then there's the execution part of it. So how do you get from this wishful thinking of, okay, we'd love to do this and that, and we'd love to have proper legal information structured in our organization to be able to leverage everything whenever C-level is coming over and say, hey, so how many, what's our current provision levels for any open claims in the organization, or actually what's our maximum exposure in our top risk contracts, or things of this kind. If you don't have the data structure behind, it's impossible to have a look at it. So How do you get from wishful thinking to resetting milestones at due dates? A thought on this, Elena?
Yeah, so you have to agree. You have to have a data structure to analyze your situation. What matters are you handle? What matters should you prioritize? And what matters could be standardized, structured, and delegated, so you can take it away from your legal department. You have to start. You have to start from the basics, really. It doesn't work just having a digital strategy saying you will implement a contract management software. You have to look at different parts of your organization on what you deliver from the legal department. So step by step, finding the parts, standardized structures, what can be delegated and what can be used by tech. You have to work much more basic, I believe, if you have an idea to really transform the whole department. Otherwise, it's difficult to transform it.
Yeah, that's one of the points that you raised when we had the preparation call on this webinar. You were mentioning really the benefits of long-term, and really here I believe that it's also important for anyone while building this digital strategy. It's just not for the sake of going digital and actually having tech in the legal department because it looks good and because we have to, and because we have a global digital plan for the organization. It's also to define your own benefits. What's the ROI that you're expecting 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now regarding what you're willing to implement? And that's maybe what should condition a bit more the different milestones. Is this how you approach it, John, Alan, when you talk to legal departments?
Yeah, well, you know, on this one, I think the part of the problem here is a lot of lawyers don't know what's available to them. So they'll have some ideas about legal tech that's out there, but they don't have a full picture. And it's so important to have people to help you on that journey, obviously, shameless plug for myself, but see things that are out there. Start understanding that tech isn't scary. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be a massive implementation. It doesn't have to cost millions. There are tools out there that you can start to look at as a team and start to understand that, okay, that's going to really help us because it does this. Now, we've always, you know, at the moment, there's been a push on really big document management systems, and they were huge implementations. Or I saw someone talking in the chat, you know, people will spend millions of pounds or euros or dollars on Salesforce and the implementation of Salesforce that looks at the whole company. Start seeing tech that's just specifically based around the legal team. And it, again, don't worry about your size. You could be a solo GC, a solo counsel. There are solutions out there that are going to make your life easier and start to get your stakeholders, i.e. the rest of the company, to see the value that you're producing and to get more out of the team in general. So start seeing vendors, start seeing like-minded vendors. If you like a piece of tech, try and see 2 others that look fairly similar. Make a real informed judgment call on what is there, but be proactive. Be really proactive in the process. It doesn't have to be massively long and sticky. It can be fairly quick and easy. So, but be proactive. Don't wait.
That's very interesting, and what you just raised also is very important, because I also believe in here really as tech editor, I believe that we all have a great responsibility in making sure that we have a very transparent way of communicating around what do we do, because it is daunting for any kind of legal department who's not really aware of what's available in the market to figure out how am I supposed to identify what do I need, plus all the different acronyms on the market. I mean CLM, ELM, DMS, and I mean how are we supposed to figure out what I'm supposed to look for on the internet? I'd like to just pretty much ask a very simple question on Google. I mean, how do I make my legal department a lot more efficient? And a part of it is obviously having great transparency in the market on what each one of us editors really provide in terms of value, and how can we help them in crunching data on their side.
So to build on the comments, data is very important indeed, and it's what we were saying I think in the introduction. you need to understand where you are, and and being self-aware and genuine. What are your key pain points, and then building on what you were explaining, John. Maybe at the beginning you can go fast, try things, and then at the same time to have like a long-term, a short-term, mid-term, and long-term plan. I think that's what is really critical to know. Okay, what is the end game? And end game means you may have different stages. If you have like a burning platform and there are like simple tools to implement, great. And then if you see that in the long run your big pain point is that your law department is spending 40% of their time on low complexity contracts, and then you can see that it's connected to Salesforce and to other like solution like Ariba, for example, on the buy side, on the purchase side. Then maybe you want to build like a specific strategy for your contract vertical. So it's really about getting the right data and a strategic planning which has to be connected to your business and within the organization.
And precisely now, if we look at the technology challenges, and that's also very interesting. So obviously, securing budget comes first, but there is also everything that's around the implementation of the software itself. I believe that what we're maybe missing here is a bit overall the education and the understanding that comes around this. That could be actually a topic for an entire webinar. But I'm here also very much interested in really this gaining stakeholder user buy-in and coping with a higher workload without increasing headcount. So the more with less challenge, very well known in legal departments. The increased need for training, and that's also something that is a bit more of a concern as tech provider. We've seen that even though legal departments have increased in terms of maturity around the kind of solutions that are available in the market, they start to understand a bit more what are the practical use cases that we have, even with AI. But yet the pace at which it keeps growing and evolving on the market, we've just actually increased the gap between the maturity of our legal departments and customers and the kind of solutions that we provide in the market. So we're just actually making this even larger. So obviously there's this huge need for training, but that's actually a scream for help from legal departments saying, okay, this is getting way too complicated for us. I mean, we're drowning in so many different use cases and solutions and possibilities. We need help figuring out actually what exactly do we want to do. How do you feel about these different challenges that we see in the implementation? Obviously, collaboration internally and change management is another one.
So maybe I will just make one comment on the resistance to change. And no later than this, 2 hours ago, I was discussing, with the Corporate Counsel Association in Singapore. And what they were telling me, I was asking, so how's it going? What are the trends you see? What about technology? And then they say, yeah, we're lost in translation. And the second comment was resistance to change. And they were explaining, look, when we speak about technology to our teams, they are scared. They are concerned that they may lose their job because the technology will replace them. So here again, you have a psychological element. It's very, very important to explain, why you want to engage into digital transformation and adopt technology. And it's very important to speak to your team and say, look, it will make your life easier. It's not about, reducing the number of the team members within the legal function.
Mm-hmm.
I think this would be, oh, sorry, Helena, go ahead.
No, you can start.
Well, the interesting thing I thought with these answers, that if you change the percentage into a yes/no question, the answer would be yes to all of them. There is a challenge in everything that's written there. So securing budget, gaining stakeholder, all of them are yeses. It's how you go about it that makes the difference. And I'm very sort of keen on having tech solutions that work with the processes. Well, obviously, after exactly what Helena was saying, sort your processes out, getting technology that works with your processes and your existing processes means that it should become a much easier implementation. Don't choose tech that's going to be really super hard to implement with the rest of your infrastructure as well, because that's where the collaboration with the IT department comes in. I don't need to be putting in the same information in 3 separate solutions. Everything should be seamless. Everyone should be talking to everyone. And the only other thing that I've said at the beginning of all of this was get as many people involved in the process at the beginning. So stakeholder user buy-in is so important, that even at the very beginning of your digital journey or what you're looking at, get the people that you know are going to be resistant to change involved in the project. Get the people you know are going to say, I hate that, I don't want to do that, I don't like that. Get them involved, get them to see what's happening, and get them involved in actually making the decision. Where it often goes wrong, from where I've seen it, is a CLO or general counsel just says, right, well, we're getting this and it starts next week. And everybody will then try and fight against it as much as possible. Well, I didn't like that, I never wanted it anyway, so I'm not going to use it. And it just becomes a real destructive piece of tech that you're going to fight battles with. Yeah,
I totally agree with what John is saying. And it was a survey last year from the UK, I think, that 77% of the legal tech projects fail that are being managed by the legal in-house department. And that the problem usually is, as Greg said, you need help, you need support by someone who knows what they're talking about. And exactly what John is saying, you have to involve people, and you have to start with small steps and start using tools that are well developed and easily available, and get some assistance from people who knows what they're talking about. If you are an in-house counsel expert in law, it doesn't mean you're an expert in implementation of tech.
Indeed. Thank you for the comments. I've seen it. We're almost at the hour. I want to make sure that we have some time to briefly to recap with a couple of takeaways that we've discussed today. So really recognizing the importance of a clear budget for legal tech initiatives to drive innovation. It's important to make sure that you identify what exactly you need to achieve. Encouraging also open communication to address concerns about the low-value task. I believe that this is also very important to make sure that this is also, especially for smaller organizations, it's a great starting point to make sure that you can tackle what's the real pain in your processes. Implementing structured processes for efficient legal tech adoption. Processes come first. It's really an important aspect of the implementation. Using metrics to demonstrate value, that's also extremely important in the way you are deploying legal technology in-house, to make sure that you are actually also focused on the end user benefits and how you can actually demonstrate how this was beneficial to the organization. We were able to actually produce self-automated NDAs for business teams, and actually we had 300 of them produced in the past 6 months. Identify pain points before adopting legal tech. What we've just mentioned before, always important to identify what do you want to achieve, not just actually adopting tech for the sake of having tech in-house. Emphasizing the importance of proactive strategy development and vendor selection. Make sure you understand exactly what you're looking for, to have a proper screen of the market. Prioritize seamless integration of tech solutions with existing processes, and eventually promote internal communication and collaboration. That's also something we haven't much mentioned, but which is also extremely important. The implementation phase, really the adoption phase of legal technology, does not end because you go live with your product. Actually, that's just a starting point. There is a lot of work to make sure that you keep this alive, that you have proper communication. A tool will evolve along with your own processes, and it is extremely important that everything is well connected and you have a good communication with your stakeholders, with your users, with the rest of the legal department. Maybe one last word, one last advice from each one of you to our audience before leaving. What's your best advice based on what we've heard this morning? Elena?
Well, I think you have to realize that digitalization is not just about tech, it's about management. And the best way to optimize the legal department is to find ways to delegate, to change what is being managed by the legal department by delegation, so you can eliminate tasks from the legal department, because elimination is the best way of optimization of the legal department.
Thank you, Elena. John?
No, yeah, I go back to start today, start looking, start getting creative, start feeling what's out there, and understand that it's not a really hard process, and start today.
Thank you. Alan?
Connect the dots, big picture. Be close to your business, start from your business, have a strategic plan, get the support from people who knows technology and will help you, not being lost in translation, and then do a proper implementation, bottom up, top down exercise, involve your team, communication, and then magic will happen.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of you. I'm sorry we still had a couple of questions to answer. I'm sorry for Robin, Christian, Wolfgang for a couple of questions that came in we weren't able to cover. Let's please get in touch. I think everyone here is very much available on LinkedIn, so please reach out to us. We're more than happy to keep the discussion, to have more discussions with all of you. So again, thank you very much all of you for attending. Thank you, Elena, John, Alan, for joining. Alan, have a great rest of your stay in Singapore, and we'll be in touch. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Everyone.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Take care. Cheers now, bye.